Bob Bowman, the Wendy's company. I'm the Chief Risk Ethics and Compliance Officer. And relative to Risk Connect, we use the GRC module as well as the insurable risk module, claims as well. I think we've been on the journey since roughly 2014, 2015, so about 10 years for us on the journey now. We started the journey with a claims migration. That initial implementation had a vision beyond just claims that really spanned what we now call GRC, or Integrated Risk Management. Back then, we appreciated the interconnection. We just didn't understand how to connect it. So we implemented it in, I believe, 2016 with claims management, and we've expanded step by step from there. Or you could say we've walked the journey and progressed from there. The interconnection is really the important piece, and frankly, that is the story, right? We started with a vision, and the vision was relative to seemingly similar information, what we'd now probably call data. We recognized that a number of the support functions, those areas that we associate with GRC, seem to desire to interact with the business relative to nearly the same information. So the simple premise became, what if you could ask the question once, minimize the disruption for the business, and each of the GRC programs could really leverage that response, that answer, that information to support and as an input for each of the individual programs. We then began to realize, if we were using a Venn diagram, hey, no surprise, these programs really have quite a bit of overlap. And that began the input-output, if you will. The output of one becomes the input of the other, and so on and so forth from there. The interconnection and the benefit that comes from it really just continues to build. On the one hand, you could observe that it's not all that complex. Maybe one of the surprises is, in fact, the simplicity. When you peel the onion back, if you will, and get to the core, the information that we're all using as inputs, the information that provides insights for us, is very similar. We all use it and rely on it in different ways, but I think that was one of the surprises for us, the commonality, the similarities, the way we could and still can leverage the same interaction with a business partner for separate and distinct purposes. It has absolutely changed the communication between groups. On the one hand, we've opened the communication. What was at one point in time the traditional silos that we probably all observe and generally all lament. Those silos existed, and they did what they did, and they did it seemingly well. When we began to connect the programs and to connect the communications as well, we opened up a channel or channels that really, if we were on the marketing side, we'd probably say we unlocked the omni-channel approach. Now we communicate not just in a forced or a cadence way, but really, truly, the input of one program is the output of another program, and vice versa. The output of program X becomes the input and thus the insight for program Y. A couple of examples really come to mind in relation to the interconnected nature of what we're attempting to do. The first relates to ERM, and generally we all think of ERM as the highest of the high levels of the GRC suite, so to speak. One of the things that we didn't realize when we began the journey was the interconnected nature of ERM and regulatory compliance. Now we view the two as nearly interchangeable with one another, with regulatory compliance representing a component of nearly every risk and a key critical input to the ERM program, whether we're gathering that information from the risk owner or, to the contrary, whether we're gathering that information from our regulatory compliance program. Second example would relate to claims, and not just claims directly, but really we refer to this as the continuum. And claims would be on my right at the end of the continuum. It is the after the fact response or reaction to something that was less than desirable. If you create the feedback loop, the output of claims becomes the input of EHS or safety or accident prevention, and it is some of the best input that we're able to come by. It does provide us with tangible, practical, real examples of what works well. We can tell that from the data, and what doesn't work so well. Again, revealed from the data. What we're effective in preventing, or the behaviors that we're effective in advocating and then building into our culture, as well as those challenges where we might have a little more work to do. What's next for us? I think, as many fingers as I have on my hand, probably we refer to this now as a bit of an octopus. We're going simultaneously in a number of different directions as quickly as we can develop amongst our program owners, those who own the individual programs, as quickly as we can develop the intellect and the vision. How and where will I go next? Who or whom amongst my newfound partners can I partner with more effectively? Can I rely on to a certain extent to increase the effectiveness of my program as well as theirs? And really that interconnected nature or realization of the interconnectedness of our programs is what's fueling that. The support from Risk Connect has been multifaceted. I would describe Risk Connect as the foundation or maybe the backbone of what we're doing. Risk Connect is really the interconnection. I don't know without Risk Connect that we'd find ourselves with the visibility that we have, with the perspective that we have, and with the single group of program owners now sitting at the same table, so to speak, contributing to the success of the organization if we didn't have Risk Connect to bring that together.